Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts to get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back in live here on a Thursday. We are almost close to ending the week. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us a part of your lovely evening. Live on all platforms known to man, Roku, iHeartRadio, and all social media platforms. You can go and also get your podcasts as well. Like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell button. Keep you up to date on notifications for future and past shows. Come on, guys. We are only 3 subscribers away from the lucky 600. If we could get to it by the end of this week, we will be golden. I appreciate all of you guys for your love and support of the show. NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs have been magnificent, and they are still going on. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting all the way through and through by the end of it. And we're only just getting started. More teams ended up winning their series. They're moving on. And some teams, they live to fight another day. So I'll tell you a team that's living to fight another day, and at the same time, we'll see exactly with what fate has in store for them. That's the Philadelphia 76ers. So in the previous game, they won in overtime. I got to tell you, I did not expect the way that the results that the Philadelphia 76ers have come across. It feels a lot like I'm scared right now for the Sixers with as far as what's in stake for the remainder of this whole series, because the Knicks have controlled their destiny with Jalen Brunson and with OG Anunoby. And I also do think they feel like the better team in this series. For the Sixers, it feels different. Well, we know Tyrese Maxey clearly had ice in his veins in that game, and you clearly saw by who stepped up, who put the team on his shoulders, and when it mattered most, that was the end result. Tyrese Maxey had to come in late up into the game, and it was back and forth basketball. Knicks controlled the time, they controlled the possession, plus they were also playing better, efficient basketball all the way through. And for the Sixers, it felt like every time they had to pick themselves back up, and they were losing momentum in so many of these parts. And then we're looking at Joel Embiid basically going, come on, bruh. What is going on with the way that the Sixers have been playing? That's kind of been the question right now with all of Philadelphia. And I think the biggest logical answer of this is you cannot heavily rely on Joel Embiid to basically carry this franchise. So in the end, I'm sorry, Philadelphia, but I think up to this point, you got to start pushing for a bigger change. That's the way that you're going to honestly end up playing this. I like Joel Embiid. I do. But I also really like Tyrese Maxey even more. And the fact that he had to come in with clutch shots and with clutch opportunities that he needed to, felt a lot like he was better off being the hero in this series, and you clearly saw it by the amount of times he's had to pick up Philadelphia and be on his best A game, and all the way till they got to the fourth quarter of play. And when there were seconds left in this whole series, Tyrese Maxey got the ball in his hands, took Philadelphia's destiny, and just went with it, got 2 clutch 3-point shots, and got them into overtime. You got to give more help for Philadelphia. And like I said, I understand with the culture right now, because the fact that, one, you've wasted many times on opportunities on Ben Simmons. And at the same time, Milwaukee's going through this whole entire situation where they ended up hiring Doc Rivers. And right now, things do not look promising. They're losing the series 3-2 to the Pacers. And so I love Nick Nurse. I love Tyrese Maxey. I like Joel Embiid. But come on. How many more times do we have to basically try to convince ourselves, or basically say, oh, yeah, Joel Embiid, he's going to get things right when? I'm sitting there and I'm watching every bit of this game. And I'm kind of going like, something is not right. Philadelphia has to get control of themselves, or they will not be that same team. And again, I took them to win the series. I thought this could be a team to get into the Eastern Conference. But as it turns out, and as it looks for Philadelphia to this point, it's not going to look great. So, and again, I love Tyrese Maxey. I think they need to get a capable scorer next to him, and somebody also that could play real good elite defense and not have to necessarily rely on, well, how's Joel Embiid basically feeling? So Philly needs more of this. I think in the end, you need to cut your losses with Tobias Harris. You need to end up figuring this out with Joel Embiid, and they got to find a way to get back in the series. But Tyrese Maxey, the fact that he had to put the fate of the team on his shoulders with those clutch threes late in the game, and then go in and win in overtime where it was a wake-up call for Philadelphia. They're not going to play like that again. And it's hard for me to basically say this, but Philadelphia, I mean, as much of the time that they've burned through with Ben Simmons and with all this other crap, it's just not good. So, again, I would love to believe in Philadelphia. I think they've done multiple things right, but I think Daryl Morey really has to come into the offseason, evaluate this roster, and figure out how he can make things better. I think that's going to be the best possibility you can look at for the Philadelphia 76ers, but every time I look at them, there's always seems to be, at some point, momentum lost, and you cannot have that, especially when you've got a team. And again, Knicks, I'd say they're going to probably go out and get a second star next to Jalen Brunson, and he deserves it because Brunson has arrived. He's become a bigger, better star, and New York has been dying for this for a long time. I think New York's going to wrap up the series. I kind of feel bad for Philly, but this is the reality we have to basically come to with the Sixers. All right, so Colorado's moving on to the second round, as we mentioned about it. And so what happens now with Connor Hellebuck and with the Winnipeg Jets? I'll tell you what needs to happen, because I could tell you right now there's going to be about a couple of roster changes, and what needs to end up happening is Rick Bowness really needs to get this team right. I mean, that's embarrassing in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs that you have a star goaltender who is a Vezina Trophy finalist, and he's given up 24 goals this whole series. And that was the whole pillar of why they lost. Goaltending was not great. Defense looked like it disappeared, and it looked like it got abysmal. Offense got shut down. And in the end, that wake-up call for Alexander Georgiev was the hugest pivoting moment for Colorado to come back and win that entirety of that series after game one. And again, everybody's been heavily critical on Georgie. They all have. They weren't sure if he was going to honestly be that big-time showstopper, that guy that was going to basically end up getting the shots blocked up, and he has. Since the time, that first game, where it was a atrocious game, 7-6 win for Winnipeg, Georgie now has had a goals against average under 2. That is after game 1. So he has limited the Jets to 2 goals a night, maybe even 1. And what's Colorado doing on their end? They have scored 24 goals total in this entirety of the series. Their goal efficiency is the best amongst all teams in the playoffs. Their power play goal unit is best amongst all teams in the playoffs. And every single one of them have been putting in the work, and they have done their part. Valerie Nichushkin, I could say, has been the biggest pivoting factor, along with Casey Middlestat. I know what I'm getting with Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. This is not a team that I would really want to play around with, because up to this point that they have shut down the Jets, and I thought their offense was playing better. No, it got shut down. Rick Bowness had no answer against Jared Bednar's hyper-aggressive offense, and not to mention Alexander Georgiev's stellar goaltending. Colorado's going to the second round, and they most deserving to. But for Winnipeg at this point, I mean, regardless if Connor Hellebuck wins the Vezina, you really have to think deep down, because he signed a lengthy contract extension before the season started, and the same thing goes for Mark Scheifele. You cannot have an offense be dull, be abysmal. Defense is getting shredded like Swiss cheese, and the same thing you got to look for with Connor Hellebuck. The fact that they pulled him after giving up that many goals just tells you that's bad. And I have to come in and watch Laurent Brossoit go in at netminder and try to be that. He has to be that secure blanket for Winnipeg to even keep in this series. Unfortunately, that all failed. Rick Bowness is going to have a fun time throughout this entirety of this offseason for Winnipeg to really figure things out. But I thought that was the most atrocious, embarrassing series I think I've ever seen. Many of the series right now has been really, really good. But what's funny about this is, I mean, the best series I think that I've seen, at least a lot of these thus far, has been Dallas Vegas, and I think I would honestly say there's been mixtures of Vancouver and Nashville. I think Nashville has been fighting for quite some time. Now, without Thatcher Demko, it is a hard point for the Vancouver Canucks. But however, this has been kind of that difficult road, and it's as I kind of predicted. This was going to be a team, you may end up winning a series, but you may turn into fool's gold by second round. I think Vancouver, with Rick Tocchet and how he's basically played amongst all, like this team in particular with their group, I mean, it's been really good. It's been a great adjustment for the Canucks and a long time coming. But at the same time, Rick Bowness and Winnipeg, they need to get their offense right. I think Tyler Toffoli is basically gone by this offseason. He's probably going to end up taking a contract elsewhere. I don't really see him sticking around with Winnipeg. I do think there are a couple of teams that could be very suited for him. Who knows what's going to happen now with Sean Monahan, because the whole point of you bringing in these two was to wake up the offense and make them much more powerful. But instead, I got the opposite. I got an abysmal offense and defense, and goaltending just looked completely abysmal. So I think they need to figure this out. It's bad enough that I have to literally watch a team. And look, it's one thing if you are a hockey team and you're giving up 10 to 12 goals in series, okay? And sometimes that does happen. But it's another when you alone are giving up 24 goals in the entirety of the series. That's why I'm like, you could go ahead and be a Vezina Trophy winner through the regular season, but everybody knows the dark truth behind all of it from when the playoffs start. Playoffs is a different beast. That's why I'm like, a lot of these teams, you're starting to figure out their truths. You're also starting to kind of figure out who's the team that's hot and who's the team that's cold. So, and I think Winnipeg had completely they've burnt out. And so every single one of these teams right now that are still fighting for their chances right now, because VGK is on the brink of elimination, and you've also got Nashville that's not going to go down without a fight. And they have been wearing out Vancouver through this series. So it's not an easy matchup for a lot of these other teams. But, I mean, you go look. I mean, Toronto, their fate might be done against Boston. And that's very, very much what's going to be the highly likely situation that will happen for them moving forward. But I got to tell you, playoffs are a completely different atmosphere. Absolutely loved every single one of it. And even when I'm watching the NBA playoffs, I'm even getting some teams that are red hot. I am dying to see what the Denver-Minnesota series is honestly going to look like, because that's not going to be a walk in the park series. Anthony Edwards is by far probably the most red hot player right now in the playoffs, and having Rudy Gobert. But we also know Denver could figure out Minnesota in multiple ways. They've been figuring out how to shut down Rudy Gobert all throughout the regular season, but you got to find a way to contain Anthony Edwards, because then that thing might go lopsided. But again, these playoffs, you're seeing a lot of truths about teams. What now is going to be their needs come the offseason. But I'll tell you, Winnipeg needs to figure out offense like today. And at the same time with their defense. But I'm not saying Connor Hellebuck is terrible, but I thought that was by far the most atrocious performance I think I'd ever see in a playoff atmosphere. All right. Good stuff. We're on a roll today. So, it's going to be interesting. I've been building up my top 10, and I think I may end up having it showcased next week because I've been waiting up onto these games. I think there's going to be a lot of truths, lots of clarity, and so far, so good. I really have liked every single one of them. So, but then also in the end for top 10, I may have my top 10 NFL teams post free agency, post the draft, and we'll have at least a really good, bright look into what we may see moving forward from here. Good stuff, though. All right, folks, like I said, with playoff action constantly heating up, the last thing you want is to be missing out on all of the big-time contests that are going on currently, from NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball regular season, and so much more. That's why BetUS has you covered on all of your favorite sportsbook lines, from all of your favorite choices. Straight bets, parlay bets, whatever you desire. BetUS has been the most reliable sportsbook company for over 30 years, taking care of their customers when it comes to giving the best straight edge analysis on every betting line, every single parlay bet yours to check out. Plus also the best casino entertainment as well, for your liking and for your desire. When you sign up, putting $50 down or more in your deposit, BetUS will guarantee you a 200% bonus for your deposit and 30 risk-free bets. Not a bad way to kick off the playoffs. We're currently going through the playoffs to give you the extra edge into your betting game today. Go online at betus.com, link in the description and also in the bio as well. BetUS.com. BetUS, where the game begins.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Check out the Con Man live on the Sports Corner, coming to a screen near you, giving you the greatest stories from basketball legends you've never seen before. Sharing their glory, building the toughness, and how they show off their swag. But only one man knows all that, and that's the Con Man. Join Michael Conceição, the Con Man, at the Sports Corner, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Trying to get your seat in today at your next event, whether it's your next sporting event, your closest stars, or your next concert with your favorite artist. Whatever your desire may be, SeatGeek has you covered at the most affordable prices on your next event and saving your seat all at the best prices. SeatGeek.com, download it on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store, and use promo code SNAKESPORT for $20 off your bill. Okay, so people have been asking me, Jake, what in the world was the Atlanta Falcons thinking, picking quarterback Michael Penix at number 8? And for those who have basically seen me, I was there with my friend, my good friend Hammer of Hammer's House, covers up all Raiders content. Check him out. We were doing the entire draft reactions all throughout the first round. And believe me, there were a ton of surprises. Some of them that have definitely took me by surprise. Now, Atlanta, I know what you all are thinking. You think, oh, this is a terrible pick. This feels a lot like you're giving a guy $100 million guaranteed. This is outrageous. Kirk's going to be pissed. The agent's been making phone calls. I know. Everybody's pulling on strings. Everybody's all just kind of freaking out up to this point, and I understand it. But here's what's funny about it. So, how many starting quarterbacks started all last season in the NFL? 66. 66 starting quarterbacks. Okay. This was a year that Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert got hurt. Multiple quarterbacks played mediocre. Trevor Lawrence was not up into his best play style. At the same time, you got Russell Wilson, who I think had a decent year, but it was not working with Sean Payton. Okay, I think we can all admit that. So then that meant Josh Allen. Josh Allen got into a rocky start, didn't end up playing well. Patrick Mahomes, rocky start, eventually wins a Super Bowl, goes back-to-back champions. But there have been multiple changes up at quarterback, and I think a lot of that too is Kirk Cousins comes down with an Achilles injury, and Minnesota had to go and get a backup quarterback in Josh Dobbs for them to basically run that franchise. Yeah. So if all of you are outraged right now by the Michael Penix pick for the Atlanta Falcons, I was on, and I was speaking about this last night with a good spokesperson that basically was giving me, was asking me what my best and my worst outcome would be for the Atlanta Falcons. Here's two things that could happen. Okay. Michael Penix, and I've said this before they went and signed Kirk Cousins. I think the best opportunity for the Atlanta Falcons was going and getting a quarterback. Once they got Kirk Cousins, I thought they were going to end up taking an edge rusher. I was wrong. They still went with quarterback. So in the end, I think what Atlanta is pretty much telling you is they are so unsure what is going to happen with Kirk Cousins' performance coming back from injury. He's 35 years old, is recovering from an Achilles heel injury. Do you know how pivotal that kind of injury is to a quarterback? It is massive. It hurts. No, not a lot of quarterbacks at all come back the same. They don't. And it's unfortunate. My biggest takeaway with all of this is Atlanta wants to be competitive for not just 2 years. Basically, it's a 4-year deal, but with a 2-year guarantee. That's where the rest of the $100 million comes from. They want to be competitive for 5+ years because it's a weird, wonky division, not as strong, but Carolina's getting better with their offense. Tampa Bay wants to repeat as division champions. And as far as for the Saints, their head coach is on the hot seat. He's on the hot seat. He's winning 35% of their games. Not good enough for head coaching. So Atlanta is taking advantage of every single window and opportunity that is presented before them. They go get a new head coach who has a lot of familiarity with this organization, Raheem Morris, but they also get Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator. He's no stranger at all, coming from Sean McVay's tree. Okay, we watched Kevin O'Connell. We watched multiple other teams, multiple other offensive coordinators who have come from Sean McVay's tree, and they have been successful. Zach Taylor was also one of them. Okay, so Atlanta is telling you they are unsure of the performance with Kirk Cousins coming off injury, but that's why they give him the $100 million guarantee. They want him to enjoy the money because he's obviously earned it, deserved it. He's got arguably one of the best agents, I think, in the National Football League. The fact he's getting $100 million guaranteed is just, good Lord. I wish I can get a guarantee when it comes to best discounted prices on housing. Or maybe if I basically sold myself when it came to, my job experiences and so much more, I could be getting a lot of this guaranteed and then be on the right track to going and accumulating more certifications and even more to get me up onto the path of where I want to be at. So Atlanta wants to be in the best position possible. And Terry Fontenot sees the future. He may not look so deep ahead, but he can see bits and pieces of the future where Atlanta has a much better offensive line. They improved vastly in defense, signing Jesse Bates and getting multiple other defensive personnel. But eventually, and they did end up addressing a little bit of some defense, but we know they're eventually going to have to come to that crossroad because of Grady Jarrett's age. Okay, so they know there's not a whole lot of time left from it, but they're probably looking at it as we're not going to have a pick like this and getting a quarterback with this stacked offensive draft. Again, next year, it's full on defense, and there are only maybe 4 quarterbacks in that draft, and that's it. There's not a whole lot, and it's not as attractive. But the Falcons, they are favored to win that division in the South. But they have a really good offense. They've added more pieces. They've given you some flexibility. And I think this is what the day and age in the NFL is all about. And the best outcome that can happen, you have Kirk Cousins who plays for 2 years. What happens if he suffers another injury or he's not as effective? Then you have a kid in Michael Penix. I know what his age is at 24. Stop freaking out about it. Okay. But you get him to basically learn the playbook week to week to week, show up in camp, show up in OTAs, get him to kind of work with the first and second team reps. And then at the same time, build those relationships as much as he possibly can when he's not on the field. So that when he does come up, he's going to be groomed up perfectly. And at the same time, these players are going to have that built-in familiarity. And remember, opposing teams will not have film on him just yet. They're going to watch a lot of college film, but they're not going to have film on him in the NFL. So that's the other good news about that. If Kirk does not end up progressing the same, there's a reason you took a quarterback. 66 quarterbacks started last season, guys. Okay, so it's very hard to predict the future for Kirk Cousins because of the fact of that injury. That injury is gruesome. It's hard. Look at what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers when he comes back from that Achilles heel at 40. You're going to think maybe the same exact thing. As you get older, certain parts of your body and ligaments, bone structures, all those things are not going to operate the same. It's like when you basically have rusts that grow on certain metals. If you don't end up taking care of them, you don't keep them cleaned and pristine and making them like well-ran oil machines, rusts build up, rust starts to deteriorate, and then that's when all things start breaking and start falling apart. It's kind of the reality that we actually see with these starting quarterbacks. Okay, and quarterback is the most pivotal position in the NFL next to offensive line, wide receivers, edge rushers, and by that point, you're going down the list of all the other positions that are also important. But I don't think Atlanta is dumb for doing this. Atlanta provided a lot more clarity than a lot of us had thought because we were very reactionary throughout this whole thing. And to me, I'm okay with the pick. I'm okay with it because what are the chances Penix comes in and like Green Bay, like Kansas City, and like many other teams have basically done this in the past. Okay. Brett Favre was pissed when they took Aaron Rodgers because they knew the future's on the horizon. We're not gonna be keeping on with Brett Favre for very long. And in comes Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had the same exact awakening the second they got Jordan Love. And Aaron went and got his money, took his money, gets traded to the Jets. And Jordan Love proved he can play in this league. Now let's see what the consistency will look like next year once they started getting a lot of really good players. And I loved Green Bay's draft picks. I loved their draft. I thought they got much better. They got more physical, and they also ended up addressing a lot of strong pieces. Kansas City was the same exact way. Yes, they had Alex Smith, but they were not going to fully trust Alex Smith all that much. They were going to build him up, get playoff appearances, and then find somebody that was going to be that pillar that got him over the top, and that's Patrick Mahomes. You groomed him right, only ended up playing the last 2 games of that season, and then by that point when he became a full-time starter, he was unbelievable. Quarterback builds are very different, but it all surrounds from your organization and your coaches, your front office people, you're from your GM, your head coach, and then by the time you get up to quarterback, like I said, anything can happen. But Atlanta has had a familiarity for years with Michael Vick as their last left-handed quarterback. So what makes you think they may not end up thinking the same thing about Michael Penix? They will be fine. I understand now why they ended up picking him, and I think this is exactly the cause that will help them to not only just win in 2 years currently, but potentially win for about 5 more years. All right. Time now for the news.
This is the Hot Press.
All right. Well, some hot news cooking right up out of the gate. So, all right. So let's start here with the NFL. So the Kansas City Chiefs ended up coming out, and so Kadarius Toney, who we know that he basically had been blowing up all on social media, all the rest of it, all from last season. Well, the news of it is that the Kansas City Chiefs, on a source, they have declined Kadarius Toney's 5th-year option. So what that's telling you is that they are not going to be very, very trustworthy in Kadarius Toney. They're not going to. So Brett Beach basically came out after declining the option and said, I don't think we ever stopped believing in him. I think people around the building like him. It's the injury bug. Hopefully he gets some luck on his side and can stay healthy and can be the player that he was at Florida and the player that we've seen in spurts here. I'm just hoping he has a good offseason and has a little luck on his side and can stay healthy. So yes, the injury bug has been a big deal for the Chiefs and for Kadarius Toney, but this is also part of the reason why that they ended up drafting Xavier Worthy. They needed some fast guys. They needed somebody that was going to be trustworthy with their health, their production. To be honest with you, how many times have we seen Patrick Mahomes get pissed off on the sidelines when Kadarius Toney is dropping balls left and right? And these are catchable throws. They are. And so if you're not going to be highly dependent on that, then it is not going to end up being the same. It's not going to end up being the same result. So that's why I think they're not very dependent on Kadarius Toney at all. I think what they're saying is that in the declining the 5th-year option basically says, listen, we like you, man, but this injury bug, this inconsistency is getting out of hand. Now we know in a big city like New York, lots of, big-time New York presses, it does get very, very pressurizing, but you're in Kansas City, for God's sakes. You're next to Patrick Mahomes. You're next to Travis Kelce. If you can't end up playing at your all-time best, I mean, I've watched him in Florida too, and I thought the kid was good, but translating that from college to the NFL has not been a very smooth one. And I think that's why Kansas City feels the way that they do. So let's see. Because anytime I get more inconsistencies from Kadarius Toney, they're going to just rip the Band-Aid off, and they're just going to really just kick the tires on this one. Hey, shifting into the NBA. So the Clippers have basically announced for their next game against the Dallas Mavericks that Clippers have officially ruled out star Kawhi Leonard for Game 6 against the Dallas Mavericks. The Clippers right now are facing elimination at 3-2 in the best of 7 against the Dallas Mavericks. Unlike in the first round series between both teams in 21, Leonard had scored 45 points to help Clippers stave off elimination in Game 6 in Dallas. LA will not have its franchise player and will try to force that Game 7. So Wednesday, Clippers suffered their worst postseason loss in franchise history at 123-93 without Kawhi Leonard. So, and here was something that Ty Lue ended up saying before Game 5. We're not sure when he's coming back. It's a day-to-day thing. When he's feeling good and medical says he's cleared to go, that's what we'll do. I'm sorry, folks, but you got to cut this thing off. Kawhi Leonard, how many times have we been really overly buying into this whole thing? Kawhi Leonard's going to be great when he comes. Stop it. Enough. I think we're done now. This load management thing sucks. And you can clearly see right now with what has been happening. Kawhi Leonard is injury prone. Okay. Look at a lot of these stars right now that you could totally see is deteriorating off. Except for one. That's LeBron James. He still plays at a high level. But we know they're going to be coming up to their time. But I think Kevin Durant, he got completely burnt out. And once they got swept against Minnesota, that was bad. And could totally tell you, KD was not on his A game. And then Kawhi Leonard. I mean, I'm sorry, folks, but this is not this. This is a disaster now. Because in the end, Steve Ballmer is one of the richest owners right now in the NBA and could clearly afford big-time talent. But the more and more you keep stringing along with Kawhi Leonard, who, by the way, I'd say I'd compare this with Russell Wilson. You're asking Kawhi to be the savior of this franchise, lift the franchise up, and be that franchise star that's going to get him to the promised land. He's not like that. Russell Wilson, this was the same similar upbringing when it came to Denver. You were asking him to be the savior of the franchise. You were asking them to build relevancy again since 2015. And this was right after Peyton Manning. He's not a savior of a franchise. He's a plug-in-and-play type of quarterback. That's why things worked in Seattle, because it was all about their defense. It was all about efficiency, and you had a really good coach in Pete Carroll. The third time's the charm. He got better. Kawhi Leonard is a plug-in-and-play player. Okay, when he came in with Greg Popovich's defense, you can argue with Tim Duncan, with Manu Ginobili, with Tony Parker, with multiple of their stars. They were grooming it up for him to play at his best. He was not the face of that franchise. And neither was he the face of the franchise with the Toronto Raptors once he got up over there. It was a plug-and-play type deal, okay? And once that was done, he then goes and signs that contract with the LA Clippers to, at the very least, shape up the franchise, make the franchise relevant, and go into the playoffs, win championships. They have a championship mentality, but this is not the answer. I think we're kind of done. I think the Clippers, I love Paul George, but I think you're wearing him out more than you are of Kawhi Leonard. So I think it's time you got to break this up. By the way, both Russell Westbrook and James Harden both disappeared. Where did they end up going in that last game? That was flat out bad. It was not good. And I think this clearly shows you this was not going to end up ending well. So I think you got to really rip the Band-Aid off of this one. Good stuff. So that was the news.
This is the Hot Press.
So as of right now, I know the game is currently going on. We're in the fourth quarter. Pacers and Bucks. Right now it's 6:53 in the fourth. Pacers are leading 106-88, but I had a feeling this was going to end up bad. But I predicted during the entirety of the bracket that I felt that the Indiana Pacers, because of their deep roster bench, and at the same time, Tyrese Halliburton really has become that player of himself. And at the same time, Indiana just has a really good mixture. They do really good at substitutions. They do really, really good when it comes to communication, when it comes to their bench and the starting five. Indiana really has been flowing very, very well. Unlike for Milwaukee, and here's what's going to be the bad part. I'll start with this. I had a feeling Milwaukee was going to get embarrassed and trounced in the first round. And it looks as though that may happen tonight. And I like Milwaukee. I love Giannis. But you can admit Giannis has developed an LA mentality. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look into past history, think about this. Magic Johnson, okay, when he came in as a rookie, they had their one coach. Coach suffered an accident. In comes the interim, right? So the interim assistant head coach goes and coaches his team. They win a title in Magic's first year at 20 years old, which that has never, ever been done before. But then the next year, that same coach now gets the starting coaching role and yet developing a system, but yet Magic Johnson feels like the odd man out. And so what happened? He got vocal. Said, this is not working. Even though the Lakers were winning games, right? They were on that path. They were on that track where they were ending up winning games. But the problem of it is they were not winning the big games they should have. And in the end, Magic got very vocal, tried forcing a trade, and then the coach got the pig slip. Ultimately, Milwaukee with Giannis, and as I've said this before, Milwaukee would have never been a franchise again had they not had Giannis. Giannis is one of the reasons Milwaukee became relevant again. Okay, and they've had past histories over and over. But at the same time, I think we can admit that once Giannis won that title against the Suns, I mean, it brought a lot. And this was with Mike Budenholzer. Next year, Budenholzer was not the answer. He clearly gets outcoached and did not end up utilizing everybody on the floor right. So then, in comes Griffin. Here comes Adrian Griffin. I thought he was a heck of a coach. Second in the East. Now, defensively, was not as the same type of team. But offensively, I was getting big-time scores. I was seeing Giannis literally, just destroy the perimeter. And I started seeing everybody playing really good situational basketball. But then Giannis says, no, get this guy out of here. This guy doesn't fit, doesn't clearly end up winning these games. And then eventually, they fire Adrian Griffin, second in the East, behind Boston, and they go hire Doc Rivers. And things took a turn for the worst. I think Giannis, this may be the last time we see him in a Milwaukee uniform. This is. Because once you develop that mentality, and again, why did they have to fire their head coach? I thought they did great offensively. Defense would eventually pick it up. And they should have. Because you bring in a guy like Dame, in comes Dame. Giannis controlled the organization, and you could clearly see the unhappiness on his face. Not to mention, he's not even up on the floor. Okay? Neither is Dame. So, don't you see a pattern right now that's basically drawn up right now that Giannis may potentially end up leaving Milwaukee? I mean, I love Giannis. I really, really wish this mentality would have never had sparked. Because in the end, you have a short-term freakout when now you have a much bigger problem because now Boston is going to be basically running the East. Indiana now looks like that they could basically trounce over, depending on what's going to happen with Miami and Jimmy Butler and multiple other pieces. But now it feels like Indiana is starting to build their relevancy, and I've been very confused by Indiana for years, but I think they finally figured it out. And the East is weak. So that's the thing. Boston's mopping this entire conference. So, and again, you look at the Knicks, and the Knicks are playing the hot hand. Philadelphia, love their coach, love Tyrese Maxey, but how many more times are we going to basically convince ourselves when it comes to Joel Embiid? So, Milwaukee, I think they took a very hard turn for the worst. They are not going to be the same organization once Giannis is gone. And you're going to tell me Chris Middleton is probably going to end up being that next guy up? And Dame, by the way, a lot of people have basically said to me, Damian Lillard did not want to end up being there in Milwaukee. He wanted to stay there in Portland, which is very believable because he loves Portland that much. But he's not going to end up holding this team afloat. And then they're going to have to end up feeling like they've got to be one player reliant when really whatever happened to their defensive identity? It disappeared. Now they feel a lot more like they feel a lot more like hit or miss on their offense. Not as great, and you could totally see it. Like, I look at the box scores from all of this, and right now, Bobby Portis, 8 and 17 in field goals. Chris Middleton, 6 of 15. Pat Beverly, 3 of 10. This is not good. This is not the kind of basketball that you were hoping that they would end up playing. And with no Giannis, makes a huge difference. And I think every bit of this tells you this is not going to be great. Not going to be good. And I think Giannis is going to be on his way out. The Bucks, this will probably be the end of it against Indiana, as I predicted, with Indiana moving on and upsetting the Bucks, because this part of inconsistency and, just nobody being up on the same page, not a good look. Not a good look at all for the Milwaukee Bucks. I think the time to say goodbye to Giannis in the organization is probably going to be that time tonight. So I do want to tap into this because the Vegas Golden Knights are facing elimination, and they play Friday night at home in Vegas. Now, people that have known me for a long, long time before my wife and I decided to move back to her hometown in Colorado and basically find ourselves in a beautiful spot. Many people know me as I'm born and raised in Las Vegas. Okay? Born and raised. All 28 years. I'm 29 now, and I've spent my birthday here now for the first time in my life. But many people seem to arguably believe, because me being a Vegas boy, that I would be very, very, I'd be a big-time homer when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. Well, not necessarily. There have been times I have ripped this organization. And the part of this is because I know they could play better than this. So the Golden Knights right now face elimination. And last night was not a good look for them against Dallas. Not a great look. Jake Ottinger is defending the puck left and right multiple times. Not to mention, defensively, the identity for the Dallas Stars has been working in their favor. This was exactly with what I was afraid of. But everybody wants to complain about, Mark Stone's coming back from LTIR, and everybody's just putting LTIR on the guy. They're stamping it up on there. And folks, you don't like it, figure it out. 16 other teams have been doing the same thing than what Vegas has done. Get over it. I understand there's going to need to be some adjustments and some fixes. I know that for a fact. But that is not the sole purpose and the sole reason why Vegas is continuously winning. They win because the fact that, one, their culture is very strong. Two, they've developed great communication and great camaraderie and chemistry. And not to mention, too, Bruce Cassidy pushes every single one of his young players. So stop it with this LTIR crap. Because in the end, I understand. They bring him into the LTIR. They save up money in the cap. They go and get Noah Hannafin, Anthony Manta, and they end up getting Tomas Hertl. Which, by the way, the offense all throughout this entirety of the series, and if you actually look at it from multiple angles, okay, from this whole series, okay, I'll bring it up for you. Vegas won the first two games on the road and then lost 3 of them at home. Okay, that's not a good look. And not to mention, they went into overtime in game 3. This has been a hard-nosed, neck-and-neck battle all throughout this whole thing because Dallas's defense is relentless. So, and many people believe it could be the Dallas Stars moving on, but sometimes Vegas, they catch us by surprise. But I think you could totally read the room with how Vegas is playing, and not to mention, too, there's other things that are left on the table, like what's going to happen to Jonathan Marchessault at the end of this postseason. Are they going to re-sign him, or will he sign with another team? I feel like, and I have been fighting tooth and nail for the Vegas Golden Knights to literally re-sign him, because that is a part of your franchise since day one. Not to mention, he's very energetic, and he has been keeping the relevance on this side of the franchise since the start. So in the end, and I rip Vegas of this because of the fact that, number one, the first 2 periods was actually pretty damn good, but then by the third period, it got quiet. It was completely crickets. So the Golden Knights couldn't even score up any goals, not let alone they couldn't even connect multiple passes. And then they had to go ahead and put themselves in dangerous situations. And by the way, I thought Adin Hill looked really good. I think he looked very decent against Dallas amongst what we've seen him in the regular season this year. It has not looked promising. Logan Thompson has also been looking really, really good. This is why it's so good for them to have a duo tandem of goaltenders, because this is what's going to help you to get over the hump. But Edmonton just blew out the LA Kings. You have the Colorado Avalanche that blew out the Winnipeg Jets. And so, and right now you're going through a tooth and nail battle between the Vancouver Canucks and the Nashville Predators. So I feel like the winner that's going to be coming out of this series, they are going to be battle hardened, because Jake Ottinger has been playing his best hockey in net minding. Now, I think the offense really does need to step it up a tick, because the fact that you cannot play stagnant against Edmonton or Colorado, you cannot. They both are hyper-aggressive offenses. Edmonton is playing with a chip on their shoulder. The Avalanche want to get back to the Stanley Cup final. And so at this point in the Western Conference, which is very hyper-aggressive offense, you cannot afford to play stagnant. And remember, Vegas, their destiny last season, Colorado got eliminated, and they had a very, very good tough battle between Dallas and Edmonton in order to get to the final and beat the Florida Panthers to be Stanley Cup champions. So this upbringing may not feel the same. But if you are Vegas and you're fighting tooth and nail, and listen, coming from a hometown, we have a saying of this all the time. We are battle-born. What does that mean? That means that regardless of the outcomes, whether win or loss or whatever, we're going to basically poke you. We're going to sock you in the face. We're also going to stand our ground very strongly because we're battle-born. We are not going to basically let our defenses down when times get tough, times get hard, and at the same time, even if there's certain sacrifices, we're going to stand our ground. And that is the mentality that I think the Golden Knights need to bring back again. And so this has been my favorite series. This has been my favorite tooth and nail series. Besides Winnipeg, which Winnipeg ended up disappointing me up into the end. The Oilers and Kings, please. That was going to be a wrap all the way through. And you look at Carolina, and then you end up looking at Florida. So, and the Rangers. So this has been by far my favorite tooth and nail matchup. But Game 6 tomorrow night at home, T-Mobile Arena. You cannot afford to end up losing this game. And this has been the mentality for multiple teams. And so at this point, you really got to do a service. You really, really need to start getting this team back up, even if it means you got to light a spark somewhere and get this team rolling. Because again, I'm not a homer, right? But I love my hometown team. I do. I stand behind them, and I always want to be able to be motivated. But I know the truth. Dallas is overly defensive. And that is hard to basically penetrate that defense, let alone when you got everybody throwing their bodies all on the ice to stop the puck, and you've got Jake Ottinger who's on a hot streak. So this has been great. But if game 6, they cannot figure it out, a lot of things are going to start to really, really get interesting come the offseason. All right, folks, that's going to do it here for me on the Snake Sports Talk Show. What a show tonight. We got loads more coming at you tomorrow. I may have my top 10 for the top NFL teams post-off season. Free agent moves, post-draft. All the things that will make sense walking into the NFL season. So I will have all of that come tomorrow. May have a special guest up as well, so you stay tuned. You don't want to end up missing out up on that. Show is sponsored by BetUS to getting your bet lines, and also get yourselves in on all of the latest contests that are going on daily. BetUS, where the game begins, and SeatGeek. Don't lose your seat and find the best seat for your next event at the most affordable price. Available now on Google Play and the App Store, and also online, SeatGeek.com. Promo code SnakeSports for the $20 off of your first purchase of your first ticket. Jake Silva signing off, guys. Have a great night, and we will see you on the next episode of the show. See you later, guys. Take care of yourselves.